Picture this: a stadium-filling pop song with 3 chords, a chorus you can hum without thinking, and lyrics you'd forget by the time you reach the coffee shop. Now, picture a quiet, brutalist film that refuses to explain itself, one that asks you to sit with the unpleasantness. The first makes money, the second gets 3 critics and a cult. Why? Because mediocrity, predictable, fluent, familiar, is psychologically comfortable in a way that depth often isn't. Our brains love ease. There's a whole stream of research called processing fluency, showing that the easier our minds process a stimulus, a tune, image, or sentence, the more we like it. Symmetry, repetition, familiar rhythms, and clear structure all make things easier to process. And that ease generates positive feelings. In short, if your brain says, "This is effortless," you're more likely to call it pleasant. That explains a lot about pop hooks, glossy movie formulas, and minimalist web design that's been A/B tested into reassurance. These things are designed to be processed quickly. They demand little mental effort, reward the viewer fast, and so they scale. There's another simple beast at work: the mere exposure effect. The more we encounter something, the more we tend to like it, even if our initial reaction is neutral. That's why radio hits, playlists, and algorithmic repeats turn a mediocre track into your earworm. Exposure increases perceptual fluency and positive affect bottom line. Repetition equals familiarity equals preference. So when algorithms feed the same formulas back to us, they're not just reflecting taste, they're shaping it. But humans are not one-dimensional. We do like some complexity, up to a point. Berline's classic idea, expanded in modern work, says our pleasure with complexity follows an inverted U. Too simple is boring, too complex is aversive, and there's a sweet spot in the middle where curiosity and comprehension meet. Deep art often sits on the right-hand side of that curve. Complex enough to be demanding, sometimes too demanding. So depth risks being too much for many people. It invites cognitive effort, ambiguity, and sometimes discomfort. Here's the essential difference. Mediocre art asks almost nothing. It's entertaining, it's predictable, it's consumable. Deep art asks for time, interpretation, and sometimes moral or emotional risk. It asks you to revise your assumptions, to sit with unanswered questions. People don't always want that. After a long day, sitting with cognitive tension is not appealing. The quick dopamine hit of something easy is. There's a social layer too. Pierre Bourdieu argued that taste is a form of social signaling. What we call good taste is often a way to show cultural capital, to belong to a class. People with different social positions develop different habits and comfort levels with complexity. For some, admiration of difficult art is a badge of distinction. For many others, it's alienating. And why pay to feel alienated? This means part of the problem isn't the art itself, it's the social infrastructure around taste. Now, add machines. Platforms are optimized for watch time, clicks, and shares, not for nuance. Algorithms favor content that keeps people comfortable enough to stay and return, content that matches existing preferences and is easy to digest. The result: feedback loops that emphasize safe mediocrity. Publications and platforms then monetize those behaviors. Journalistic think pieces and essays have called this algorithmic mediocrity, the idea that automation and optimization can flatten cultural variety by rewarding what's most broadly palatable. It's not a conspiracy, it's an incentive structure. Time. Let's get concrete. Example A, a blockbuster rom-com. Same structure: meet cute, obstacle, misunderstanding, reconciliation. It's plotted for empathy and closure. People love it because it's emotionally predictable and satisfying. It doesn't force the viewer to sit with ambiguity. Example B, an experimental art house film that refuses to answer its questions, with long takes where little happens. Critics rave, but casual audiences often leave the theater baffled. The film demands interpretive work. The rom-com demands almost none. Example C, pop music. A 4-chord progression, a catchy chorus, and a lyric repeated enough to memorize. It's engineered to be comfortable and repeatable contrast that with the composition that shifts tonal centers, uses irregular meter, or pursues dissonance, those tend to polarize listeners. These are not moral judgments. They're observations about design and psychology. Here's something hopeful and important. Depth can reward you, often more richly than the shallow does. But it usually requires time and cognitive investment studies on art. Appreciations show that challenging art can provide mental growth and a sense of achievement once you engage with it. Preferences can shift with exposure and interpretive effort. In other words, the pleasure from deep art often comes after a slog, not instantly. That's why some people love being challenged. They enjoy the process of working towards insight, but the market doesn't always reward the slow burn. There's another psychological truth. Deep art often engages uncomfortable emotions: shame, grief, ambiguity, emotions that threaten our sense of self or worldview. When art threatens a cherished narrative, defensive reactions kick in. We don't like feeling small, confused, or morally implicated. So we avoid stimuli that might trigger those states. Mediocre art is safe because it rarely threatens. It entertains, pacifies, and affirms. Not everyone has the same tools for interpreting complexity. Cultural education, exposure to art history, critical vocabulary, museums, trains people to decode complexity and find pleasure in it. Those who grow up with that training are more likely to seek out and enjoy depth. Those who don't, perfectly reasonably, prefer art that's accessible without that scaffolding. This is where institutions matter: schools, public programming, critics, podcasts. They can widen the audience for depth by teaching the skills to appreciate it. Hold on. We shouldn't pretend mediocrity is always bad. There's craftsmanship in making something that reliably satisfies. Ernest Hemingway's Economy of Style, the Beatles' gift for melody, these are not accidental simplicity. When executed with excellence, can be transformational. What we're really discussing is the commercial dominance of the lowest common denominator, not the moral worth of accessible art. Truly skilled creators can make simple work that's rich. The problem arises when markets reward safe mediocrity at scale, crowding out risk and innovation. Is culture ruined because mediocrity sells? Not wholly. Markets always reflect incentives. If platforms and attention economies keep rewarding the easiest content, variety narrows. But there are counter forces: independent publishers, patronage, festivals, niche communities, and yes, slow cultural transmission that rehabilitates depth. The real threat is when structure funnels resources away from risk takers. When we stop funding translation, criticism, education, and the slow work of building audiences for depth. So why does mediocrity sell while depth scares people? Because our brains prefer fluency and familiarity. Because social and economic systems favor the safe. And because depth asks something most people aren't trained or motivated to give. But depth is not dead. It thrives in niches, grows through mediation, and with patience and design, can become part of wider culture. If you're a creator, don't dumb down your work. Learn to invite people in. If you're a viewer, let yourself be patient and practice the hard pleasures. We lose nothing by expanding what we can enjoy.